12 o'clock on your Tuesday after navigate through almost the halfway point in the month of January. You know, it's really funny. It always feels like January takes the longest because, you know, you have the holidays at the end of December and all that stuff, and then boom, you're into January, and then, you know, you have the long work weeks because you're not used to working 5 days in a row, and then it feels like it takes an eternity to get to January the 31st before crossing over into February. I'm not getting that vibe this year. It's going by really fast. Maybe that has to do with the fact that we have so much news to talk about in terms of not only what's happening on the field and on the court with South Carolina athletics, but also what's happening off the field and off the court as well. And particularly when we talk about the transfer portal, which of course has been a dominant headline for Gamecock football even before the bowl game happened, because of course the portal window opens in the middle of December, and you have the opportunity to add guys basically all the way through, I mean, realistically for this portal cycle for the next handful of weeks. Because, again, you have a window of opportunity to go in based on when your season ends, which is 5 days. So up until really the January 25th, because the national championship game will be on the 20th, you're going to have guys, non-graduates, of course, that will be entering, you know, from Notre Dame and Ohio State and stuff like that as the college football calendar, the 2024-2025 college football season comes to a close. But Carolina's done a consistent job of adding guys seemingly every couple days, it feels like, to their 2025 portal class, the latest of which yesterday being Brandon Cisse from North Carolina State at the cornerback spot. And this is a guy that we've been talking about on and off for the past, week or so. He's a name that is pretty sought after. A lot of different schools looking at him. Seems to have come down to South Carolina and Ole Miss for his services, and he ends up wanting to come play at South Carolina when it's all said and done. And look, he's a local kid. He's from Sumter, played at Lakewood. So there's the direct connection there on why he wanted to come back home like so many guys do to play here at South Carolina. But I think there's a obvious opportunity to come play in what was a really good defense this past year. We threw around the word historic and donuts and all that kind of stuff, but it certainly was. And I pulled up the numbers a little bit earlier in the last hour. Carolina ranked 44th in the nation in pass yards allowed per game at just under 205. So a very solid secondary that it's obviously aided when you have as good of a pass rush as South Carolina did, because your guys aren't asked to be in coverage for a long period of time because the ball's getting out quick, or you're just obviously getting a sack on the quarterback from Kennard or Stewart or something along those lines. But Cisse seemingly wanted to become a part of what was a really good defense this past season. You have O'Donnell Fortune, who's obviously moving on to try his hand in the NFL and is just out of eligibility, in general there. So you have a corner spot that is wide open. Judge Collier, you would think, would occupy one, given the fact that he did that for most of the season. But a wide open competition, I would imagine Braden Cisse is going to be the one thought to have the leg up in coming here to Carolina. The industry ranking via the transfer portal has him listed as a 4-star, one of the more sought-after cornerback prospects in the transfer portal class this season. And again, comes in with a pretty decent track record from what he did at NC State. And we try not to invest everything into the Pro Football Focus numbers in terms of what a guy's potential is and what his success at his previous places are. But when you do look at the Pro Football Focus numbers for a guy like Cisse, I mean, you really can't help but get excited given the level of production that he had this past season in particular. I mean, and again, we kind of talk about baseline grades being 60 as anything above that being good. Well, he was 73rd in defense overall. He was 78.5 on his rush defense grade, 84.3 on tackling, which for a defensive back at corner, that is really freaking good. He's only charted as missing one tackle the entire season. We'll take that, certainly. Pass rush grade, not doing that a whole lot, but 66.7. And then coverage grade, a very solid and respectable 70.5. So based on those metrics that, Pro Football Focus uses to come up with those numbers, a lot of things to be excited about for what he brings to the table. Kind of looking at his numbers when he was in coverage this past season, only allowed 175 total yards this year. Now, he only played in 9 games, so this isn't an entire 12, 13 games worth of work, but still to only allow 14 receptions and 175 yards over the course of 9 games, that's pretty solid. You're obviously allowing less than you're allowing just over 1 reception per game. And in terms of yardage allowed, only 1 game where he gave up a huge amount. That was against Clemson, where he surrendered 74 yards. 40 of those came on 1 reception by T.J. Moore in that game. So again, very good numbers. Obviously, a good body of work from what he did at NC State, and somebody that we expect to slide right in to the secondary for South Carolina as it retools a bit. Again, you're losing O'Donnell Fortune. You're losing Nicky Minori. And look, Nicky Minori is a very hard guy to replace because that was a special talent, a special athletic specimen that we all think is going to go on and have a pretty successful NFL career. I know people are still probably upset with the way things ended with the bowl game and all that kind of stuff, but regardless, a very consistent contributor on the back end of your defense that had just played a ton of football. Again, he got thrusted into the starting role right from the jump in his freshman year now 3 seasons ago, and really, for the most part, never left the field too many times since then. So that's a hard guy to replace. You obviously had DQ Smith at one of those safety spots. We talked about this in the last hour with Wes and Chris. You would assume that maybe Jalen Kilgore takes the other one, and he'd been playing that nickel corner role, so a quasi-safety nickel type for a lot of these past 2 seasons. But if he's truly your best option at the safety spot, maybe you just slide him into being a true safety and kind of fill that role that Nicky Minori is leaving behind. And look, we got the entire offseason to talk about this and talk about position battles and all that kind of stuff as we make our way through the spring, as we make our way through the summer, and ultimately get ourselves into fall camp coming up here in a couple months. But the most important thing that Carolina's done through this first portal cycle, and again, from all indications based on visits and all that kind of stuff, it seems like for now they are done. Doesn't mean they can't add guys in the spring portal window. That can certainly happen. But for now, you've added 13 bodies to your team and addressed a lot of areas of need when it comes to depth. And that was kind of the name of the game as we went into this offseason was, man, how's South Carolina going to replace all the depth that they had at so many spots this past season? Especially when you look at things on the defense, because this was such a senior-laden team. Carolina was one of the most experienced teams in all of college football. You knew that the defensive line was going to get gutted by guys like Tonka and guys like Boogie and all those leaving. And obviously, we hope those guys have successful NFL careers themselves. But you've gone out. You've gotten, Miles from Bowling Green. You've gotten Brownlow Dindy from Texas A&M, who has a very high ceiling given what his prospects, coming out of high school were. You got Xavier Hardy, who is regarded as one of the best on the defensive line coming out of community college, in addition to bringing back guys like Nick Barrett and Monkel Goodwine. So again, we don't know exactly what the rotation is going to shake out and end up looking like, but having quality bodies in that room, guys with experience, and that's 4 guys that have played a significant amount of football. And I know Xavier Hardy's obviously coming from the JUCO ranks. There is going to be an acclimation and adjustment process, but Nick Bart's still really got to fill some gaps to this spot. There's still glaring holes in terms of overall depth at this position, and there are some spots that you brought in just a ton of guys from the high school ranks, like linebacker, like the edge spot, where in addition to what you have in terms of returning experience, in terms of what you have in guys coming in, guys are excited about. Wes and Chris talked about Kendall Daniels in the last hour as somebody that could really be a big factor at the safety spot. And, see how those guys develop, how they integrate in this defense, specifically talking about him and what they can end up being by the time season rolls around. But for what this window was needing, which was building depth, you did a good job of that. Now, again, you didn't go out there and get the superstar wow guy like a Spencer Rattler or a Rocket Sanders, where you know exactly the level of production they can bring to an SEC team. Guys like Rajul Faison, who certainly had a great season this past year out in the Mountain West at Utah State, we anticipate to be a solid contributor, but we don't know for sure. There is, again, a jump up in competition level on a week-to-week basis that makes you take it with a grain of salt to a degree until you see it come to fruition. Obviously, a ton of guys, via the transfer portal on the offensive line. See how that shakes out. Is that, once again, is going to be wide open this year, and you're replacing a lot of good production in guys like Rashawn Lee and, Torrey Simpkins, who obviously had a lot of experience under their belt, leading through to the end of this past season. But you feel pretty good about where things are at as of right now. Now, again, Beamer will tell you they're not done. They're always going to be searching, always going to be looking. And if there's a guy they feel like they can add that's going to help this team be better and help this team win, they're absolutely going to do it. And that may be until we get to after spring practice. We'll have to see. But for the 13 you've added so far and 18th in total, into the team total transfer portal ranking. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Terry Ford will show up at some point. So if you took the 3.5 minutes, we are nailing the over by a long shot today. He'll get here when he gets here. That's coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Terry Ford, and Captain Dave at Master Control on your Tuesday on the Game.
Darnold, ball's out. Picked up by Verse. Off to the races. And gone for the touchdown. Witherspoon knocked it out. And Verse took care of the rest.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head. I'm assuming Terry Ford's going to show up at some point. Dave, do we need to send out a search party to find Terry?
Possibly.
Possibly. I was going to say, if you bet the over on his arrival time, you're winning big money today. Anyways, that was the call last night, Monday Night Football, the final Monday Night Football on Monday Night Football of the 2024-2025 football season. Joe Buck there. Jared Verse with the scoop and score that helped lead the Los Angeles Rams to the 27-9 victory over the Minnesota Vikings. And if you look at the numbers and the statistics for the Rams last night on offense, Matt Stafford threw for 209, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, they ran for 90 yards. It's fine, but nothing that really blows you out of the water. It was the defense that was the story of this game, particularly their pass rush. They got Sam Darnold to the ground 9 times last night. 9 times. The Los Angeles Rams sacked Sam Darnold, bringing to an end what we thought only a couple weeks ago was maybe one of the greatest seasons in Minnesota Vikings history. Let's rewind 9 days now to last Sunday, the final day of the regular season in the NFL. The Vikings going on the road to take on the Detroit Lions in the final game of the regular season, Sunday Night Football. 2 teams at 14-2, something that had never happened before in NFL history, where 2 14-win teams are squaring off in the final week of the regular season for the right to claim the number 1 overall seed. The Vikings lost that game 31-9. Didn't look great in it. Detroit locked up the number 1 seed. They will obviously go on to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs that starts up for them this upcoming weekend. And we wondered, coming away from that game, okay, was that a anomaly? Was that just one bad game? Because every team in the NFL has bad games, right? The ball didn't bounce your way. You're just, something's off, right? Or is this the beginning of the end for what's been a fun and magical season for the Minnesota Vikings? It ended up being the latter. And particularly when you talk about Sam Darnold, who, again, for all intents and purposes, has had a resurgent year playing quarterback. This is a guy that he was with the Jets. That didn't go well. He was with the Panthers. That didn't go well. And kind of became this. And he was with the 49ers as well. Forgot about that last season. He was a forgotten guy by a lot of people because they thought, well, he never met a bunch of those other places. Surely he's not going to do anything going to Minnesota, especially after being thrust into the starting role with J.J. McCarthy going down in the preseason. And in a lot of ways, revitalized his career with the year that he's had. The most passing yards of his career at just over 4,300, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. This is a guy that people were talking about not long ago as a potential MVP candidate. And these last 2 games, it is all gone in the trash. Now, I put a lot more on what happened last night on the pass rush. There were certainly several instances where Sam Darnold held onto the ball way too long, could have got rid of it, could have saved a sack or whatever, but the pass rush got after him, and his protection wasn't all that great. But, man, you want to talk about a fall from grace that quickly? I mean, you turn on ESPN this morning or whatever, they're talking about the tens and millions of dollars that Sam Darnold has cost himself in the past week and a half with his performances. He played bad against the Lions last weekend, was under 50% completions, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, didn't score a touchdown, and last night wasn't a whole lot better. But, man, what a whirlwind of a past 10 days for the Minnesota Vikings for thinking you might actually be a legitimate Super Bowl contender to being out in the first round just like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. So
23 minutes,
yeah, there was
by the
a
way.
record. Oh, man. I tell you, I took a nap. I thought I set my alarm. It was awful. I woke up and I went, oh, my God.
Whoever bet the over, you won.
So this was me last night. And maybe it's because I'm getting older and I'm mellowing. I actually felt sorry for Sam Darnold last night.
I did too. 1,000%.
I was just sitting there. You know what it was? And look, I get it. He's got millions of dollars. He plays professional football. He knows what he got himself into. I get all that. I understand the whole thing of, who feels sorry for that guy? And look, have I made my share of Sam Darnold jokes over the years?
We
all have, right? And you and I sat here on this show all year saying eventually the icy ghost Sam Darnold's going to come back. But you know what? I watched these last 2 weeks with him, and I feel bad because of this. Here's a guy who was drafted top 5 overall, who was one of the biggest draft busts of the last, or maybe of this new millennium, right?
Yep.
Went through all the and by the way, there's no criticism like New York criticism.
Oh, God, no.
And Sam Darnold went through all of it. He was broken. He was broken mentally and physically and emotionally and everything. Left, got another chance with another bad organization in Carolina, and obviously we saw how that went. Then we push him off to bust, journeyman, hanger-on, clipboard toter, all that stuff, right?
And you know what? You can make a good living doing that, or you bounce around from team to team and, hey, starter gets hurt, come in, play 2 games for us, and then go back to the bench. And, there's nothing wrong with that career. I mean, gosh, Carson Wentz is doing that right now. And Chase Daniel did it for the longest time. Like, you can hang around the league for a while like that, but he got thrust into the starting role with J.J. McCarthy for seemingly the entire season. Like you said, we're waiting. Okay, a couple good games here and there. It's coming. It's coming. And we were waiting. Eventually, it seems like it came.
Yeah, and once, it's one thing, you can make a living being the ball cap wearing backup, but what do you carry around with you when you were a former top 5 pick in the NFL draft and now you're that guy? And then all of a sudden, Darnold started to play like a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, like a franchise quarterback. And his teammates are carrying up on his shoulders and they're running around the locker room. And the story's so cool. And the guy, we always talk about we always have more respect for the dude that gets punched hard in the lower extremities, falls down, coughs up blood, has to get up, gets hit by a pole, has to get back up. We always respect the guy that goes through it all, right? And then he gets it. It felt like it.
He's earned it.
Yes. It felt like Sam Darnold, at least for his moment, earned it, right? He got back.
Yep.
Now he's going to make he's going to sign a lucrative deal in the offseason to be someone's starting quarterback, or the Vikings are going to pay him and keep him or whatever. And in the last 2 games, because of his play, he's lost millions. And all of a sudden, the old questions of Sam have creeped back, right? Because the 2 biggest games of his life, Sam has soiled himself.
Yes.
And so here's this guy that did all this thing. You know what it's like? It's like the dude pushing the rock up the hill.
Yeah.
You get to the top, and Sam thought he finally got to the top, and guess what? The rocks ran over him again.
Yes.
And I felt really bad. I looked at his face last night, like walking off the field, like, what the hell is happening? Oh, I thought I got past all this. I felt bad for him last night. I really did. And it's just, again, I know, I get it. It's what you sign up for, but I did. I sat there last night going, wow, this is sad.
Yeah, well,
it's really sad.
And like last week, it seemed to just get away from him fast. And I don't know if it's the fact that they hadn't played through a lot of adversity this year, but I guess when he had to dig himself out of a hole, he just couldn't do it.
Well, plus the offensive line fell apart the last 2 weeks.
The offensive line was terrible.
I mean,
I think 9 sacks is a playoff record, by the way.
Yeah, it was. And by the way, he just got hit again.
Yeah.
He got up to brush his teeth, and 3 guys hit him wearing Ram jerseys. It's just the idea. The offensive line the last 2 weeks, they were terrible. And I think the Lions, because the Lions said, screw it. We're not going to sit back and let you pick us apart and throw to Jefferson and this crew of receivers that are really good and this tight end and this back. We're going to come after you. We're going to pressure you, because really, if you're the Lions, you had no choice because your defense is so beat up. You said, screw it. We're sending the house. And guess what? It worked. So the Rams, they said, you know what we're going to do? We're coming after you, just like the Lions. And guess what?
It worked.
Worked again. And you saw Sam Darnold basically fold under the pressure. Like, look, is he the only quarterback that can't handle heat? Sure. But when you're a guy that's already had question marks your entire life, and now you feel like you've gotten it together, and now here you go, struggling.
You lose the benefit of the doubt.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
It's like, okay, well, instead of it being like, hey, it's a young guy, he's just going through it a little bit, he'll learn. It's like, no, there's Sam Darnold being Sam Darnold again and again. what I'm sure somebody's going to take a chance on him in the offseason and sign him as their quarterback, the Raiders or somebody along those lines. But the potential money he could have wielded and the places he could have gone, you probably cut that in half.
That's why I love Troy Aikman last night. Troy Aikman was just honest. He goes, you know how much money Sam Darnold's losing
Yeah.
right now? And Troy Aikman's right. And like I said, I get it. I understand it. Look, we'll joke about Sam Darnold and all that stuff because, again, that's the way we roll with people who watch sports and talk about sports. But there is a large part of me that really, really feels bad for Sam Darnold after all he's gone through and where he thought he finally got over everything.
Especially if it never gets better again.
Right.
If he never finds that again in his NFL career.
Yeah, it's just a shame. Feel bad for him. All right. What you missed, in case you just woke up, get you updated on some of the things going on in the world of sports. If you haven't looked at your phone or your tablet or your TV, your laptop or your desktop, that is next here on the Halftime Show. Captain Dave steering the ship. Tyler's here. I just figured I'd wake up from my nap and show up and hang out a little bit as we roll till 3 on the game. Oh, what we're talking about is what's been going on in case you just woke up, sponsored by our buds at the Gutterman. Tyler Head, David Ayer, Terry Ford, halftime show on the game. Obviously, we've talked about South Carolina probably finishing up their portal
For now.
for right now.
For this cycle. And again, I kind of skimmed through the roster breakdown right now, and there's nothing glaring as far as like, oh, man, you still got a big hole here and you're still missing a lot of depth here. Like, I think they, for the most part, address the depth needs as of right now. Yeah, you can go out there and get maybe an X wide receiver to bolster that room a little bit more, but I don't think we go into spring like, oh my God, we have a dying need for more guys at this one spot. Again, more is obviously going to be great, but I think they did a really good job of addressing the areas of need and filling gaps where they needed to so far this winter.
Yeah, and adding Brandon Cisse, good Pro Football Focus grades.
Yep.
Productive player, played corner, played slot. And again, you're losing O'Donnell Fortune.
Yep.
And yes, you have some young DBs who have some high ceiling, like a Vakari Swain. But, it doesn't hurt to have a guy come in who can handle the goods.
Yeah.
So, a very good get.
And we didn't really talk about it much when it happened a couple days ago, but Miles Norwood also coming in from Ball State also. And again,
Another
that's not
experienced guy.
That's not a school that obviously is the sexiest in terms of bringing talent in, but he's a guy that has experience. Guys that played college football, up to this point, and who knows how he comes in factors. But the more bodies, the more experience you have in a room, hopefully the better the two guys you end up with on either side of the defense, the better.
I know a dude came in here from Charlotte nobody knew anything about last year. How'd that go?
Hey, you never know. Again, this isn't a portal class that's full of a ton of flash, and look, it's not going to be the one that yields the highest NIL value out there, like a Ole Miss or Ohio State or something along those lines. But again, you address what you needed up to this point.
Right now, South Carolina's sitting 18th on the On3 transfer portal rankings. And real quick, if you just go through the top 10, you're not going to get a ton of surprise. Everyone knows Texas Tech has got a collective together and some deep-pocketed dudes who want Texas Tech to be able to spend.
Sure.
And so Texas Tech is number 1 right now in the transfer portal.
Yep.
Ready? Ole Miss is number 2. You want to take a minute to be stunned and surprised?
I know. But by the way, Carolina beat Ole Miss for Cisse.
Yeah. I mean, because when you see Ole Miss on anybody's list now for transfer portal, you're like,
Guy's good, and that guy's probably commanding a lot of dollars.
Mm-hmm. So, again, a very good get for the Gamecocks. Number 3, again, not a surprise with what they're building. The NIL is in good shape at Missouri.
Eli Drinkwitz isn't going to go away anytime soon.
Unfortunately. Now, number 4, Miami. Again, a lot of money being thrown around. That's why Mario Cristobal left Oregon to go to Miami, because there was a lot of guarantees that money was going to be thrown. There were going to be bags.
Oh, yeah.
Laying around Coral Gables.
Listen, Miami had bags a long, long time ago.
They were just
before it was legal.
Slipping them under the table.
Now you can actually put them on top of the table.
And they spent a lot of money on Carson Beck.
Yes, they did.
The rumor between $3 and $4 million.
Here's the thing. Off-season surgery. He's not going to have a spring. You don't know exactly what he's going to be like when the season rolls around. You are taking a risk.
And ready? You're also taking the risk. Do you get the 2023 version of Carson Beck or the 2024 version of Carson Beck?
That's a good question as well.
LSU, again, a lot of money in collectives and things of that nature. LSU's at number 5 in the portal. Auburn, they print their own money to give out.
Auburn is
6.
at a make or break point. Hugh Freeze has been here for 2 years. 2 years have not gone the way people thought those 2 years were going to go. They missed a bowl game completely this past year. This is it's now or never. And I don't know if it's Hugh Freeze pushing the collectives or the collectives pushing Hugh Freeze, but they're on a frenzy of trying to bring in everything that they can because they have to win now.
And they, at some point, really, they've been a lot more patient than with Hugh Freeze. Remember, they were trying to fire Brian Harsin after week 1.
I know.
They hired him, and they wanted to fire him that same week.
Listen, he never fit.
No, he was a clunky fit.
That was a mistake from the jump.
Yes.
At least Hugh Freeze had SEC experience.
And he won in the SEC.
He won in the SEC and understood what it's going to take. So I think that a lot of people say, okay, we'll give him a little bit more time. But again, that's a very impatient bunch out there on the plains.
And, you've heard this one. Oh, Auburn and Hugh Freeze, they understand each other. I don't know what that says about anything, but Auburn and Hugh Freeze, you get it. All right, number 7 is Michigan. Again, no surprise. A lot of money in Ann Arbor. I'm going to skip number 8 for a minute.
Okay.
Number 9 is Oregon.
Yep. no surprise.
They got a guy with money.
Old Phil just cutting checks.
Uncle
left
Phil,
and right.
man. Uncle Phil doesn't care. Uncle Phil is a money machine. Uncle Phil, he just,
Do you think he watched the entire Rose Bowl?
No.
He was just disgusted by halftime.
He went and print more money. Uncle, he's probably got the little change thing on his belt, but he gives out 20s. Remember like the Good Healy ice cream man?
Oh, yeah.
But his gives out 50s and 100s.
Oh, he's got a Nike money belt.
Oh, absolutely. Number 10 is University of Washington. Look, they love Husky football.
That's what you told
in
me.
Seattle.
It is you don't think of outside of Oregon, the Pacific Northwest as the most rabid college football fans, but
No, those folks
apparently
do.
Seattle, it's a big
Yep,
deal.
They do. I mean, remember, that was the favorite team in Seattle before the Seahawks, before the Mariners, before the Sonics. People loved Husky football. So for them to be at number 10, meaning there is some money being pushed. And by the way, Seattle has money.
Yeah. Well,
They have a nice little thing, this little tech area in
I was
Seattle.
going to say, there's a lot of tech up there.
Yeah, they got money.
Starbucks and all those other things.
Yeah, they got some dough. Absolutely. They got this thing called Boeing. You ever heard of it? Yeah.
They fly stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Number 11 is Texas A&M, to no one's surprise either. Now, I'm surprised they're so low at 11, to be honest.
Yeah.
With that cult and that money,
That Colt and the solid first year they had under Mike Elko.
I'm a little surprised.
That certainly doesn't, push anybody away by any means. But again, we're only, through January, so there's plenty of time. And old sliced bread, I'm sure, will be cutting checks before long, right?
Number 8, though, Rutgers.
Big Ten Rutgers.
Yes.
For those that have forgotten that they exist in the Big Ten.
Yeah, Rutgers. They have a collective. You and I were looking at it. They have really made a push with their collective, with a lot of people with deep pockets who have either gone to Rutgers or, people, New York City folks, whatever. Rutgers is basically throwing their chips on the table when it comes to NIL.
Yeah.
And they're not messing around. Shiano's a good recruiter, and now they're going to be spending a lot of NIL money. That's what's going on for right now with Rutgers, from what we were looking at today for fun. So Rutgers is in the top 10 in transfer portal.
So I looked at famous alumni from Rutgers, and in the most New Jersey way possible, James Gandolfini
Of course,
went to Rutgers.
Of course.
So I'm picturing him just cutting a massive check, like, hey, Shiano, let's go win some games.
Do you think they're taking the recruits to the what was the name of the nudie bar in Sopranos? I can't remember. The Bada Bing. The Bada Bing.
So you bring a recruit into the room, and you talk to him and make it worth his while, and let him know if he chooses another school, there's going to be consequences.
I just want to let you know that we're going to make an offer you can't refuse. Be so good. That'd be the best collective ever.
That's the most New Jersey thing I can think
there's
of.
no doubt. All right, also, just in case you woke up, sponsored by the Gutterman here on the halftime show on the game, Dallas Cowboys. I hope this works just because selfishly it gives us so much to talk about every day. And really, I am not a person that likes to talk about the Dallas Cowboys at all because I just get OD'd on everybody else talking about the Dallas Cowboys.
Sure.
But if for some way, shape, or form, I'm not saying it's a good hire or a bad hire. I'm just saying for the pure entertainment and content purpose, Deion Sanders going to Dallas would be beautiful. It would be beautiful. Now, again, I think Deion choke slams Jerry by the end of the first week because who runs Deion's life?
Deion.
Who runs the Cowboys?
Jerry.
Who's going to want to run the Cowboys if you're the head coach and you're Deion Sanders?
Deion.
And who's not going to let Deion run the Dallas Cowboys?
Jerry.
How much entertainment would that be?
Phenomenal. It'd be its own reality show. Like Hard Knocks already exists. They'd create a different show called Deion and Jerry. It could be like a sitcom.
It would be so good. Just so good. And so I don't think it's going to happen. I think, again, this is a lot of Deion's people and Deion continue to keep Deion's name out there so Colorado will understand just what they have, and they'll continue to want to give Deion whatever Deion wants. So I don't think this is going to happen. It won't work. It just won't work. But it's fun. It's fun to talk about.
Oh, sure. And I know, look, Deion put out the, hey, I'm committed to Colorado and Boulder and all this kind of stuff, but part of me wants to believe it's going to happen.
It would be beautiful. And by the way, Jimmy Butler, Miami Heat, continues to say, I want to be traded. Again, this is contract stuff. This is this has got a lot in the pot. But Jimmy Butler at his age, to be traded to get some astronomical contract is not real life. But I love playoff Jimmy, but this is a very interesting scenario we don't have time to get into anymore. Coming back, we've got our Firehouse Sub Text the Hour, 803-404-6100 on the Halftime Show. All right, 803-404-6100. Time to roll our Firehouse Sub Text of the Hour.
Two things. One, thank you to those that pointed out. I'd forgotten James Gandolfini did pass away 10 years ago. So he's not going to be cutting any checks to Rutgers football.
No, we're just talking about the
But
Sopranos.
the Sopranos and the fact that the most New Jersey person you can think of went to Rutgers.
Well, I thought you knew he had died. We were just talking about like the fake Sopranos world.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
yes,
so
yes,
no, we knew he was dead.
right.
Unfortunately, I
Yes.
love Gandolfini.
Yeah.
Did you watch The Sopranos?
No, I did not.
You should. You
I
need
know.
some time.
I know.
watch The
I
Sopranos.
can't dedicate myself to an entire television series hardly anymore, unless it's like a sitcom. It's really easy to watch. Like the last drama that I watched all the way through, probably Breaking Bad, and that was, God, like 10 years
been
ago.
a while.
It's been a while.
Here's what I go through because I'm like that too. I got buddies of mine who do this for a living, sports radio, and they'll go, "Yeah, man, I binged 3 seasons of some show over the weekend." Did you watch sports?
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
There's a small pocket in the summertime where that kind of stuff, okay. But yeah, like right now, no.
Gotta be honest with you, I'm still trying to finish Ted Lasso.
Really? Okay.
I am still working on the last season of Ted Lasso. I stopped once football season started. There was no Ted Lasso.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so now I'm hoping at some point here soon I can maybe sneak another episode or 2 of Ted Lasso. And
My wife and I typically, like, we'll watch sitcoms and stuff like that. We're watching Community right now. We're on the last season. We'll watch like 2 episodes a night eating dinner, but that's about all I can manage at this point.
People say, "Hey, did you watch this? You watch it? You got to watch this. You got to watch that." I'm like, as soon as I can find my joke is always this: is it on ESPN?
Yeah, I know.
And they'll go, "No, it's on Paramount." Or I go, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm watching ESPN."
Can you get me an extra a month? Can Toyotathon become a month or something like that? I can watch it then.
You can watch Yellow Jackets. That's a sport.
I want to watch Yellow Jackets. The previews of Yellow Jackets looks really good
Oh, yeah.
because it looks like it's massively creepy, but also interesting.
Oh, I saw that. I know what you're talking about.
Where something happens when they all get stranded somewhere when they're young, when they're teenagers, and then
Soccer team.
and now they're back to being grown-ups and whatever.
Yeah.
It looks good, Dave.
First 5 minutes, if that doesn't get you, man, you're...
I'll check that out.
I was told, what's that show Primeval that's out now? Was it Gunner? Gunner said if you can get through the first episode. I'm like, okay, cryptic. But Yellow Jackets, I do want to see Yellow Jackets. It looks really good.
And 3 days till season 2 of Severance.
You love that show.
I love it.
So you said something there. I hate it when series are like, oh, if you got to get through the first episode, get through the first 3 episodes. Like, no, you're supposed to hook me right from the jump.
Right.
Right. You got to make me want to watch your show right from the beginning.
I'll tell
Both of
you.
those series do.
I watched Ozark, which was phenomenal. The first episode of Ozark. You see Ozark, Dave? The first episode of Ozark.
Is that the guy falling out the window? Was that in the first 5 minutes?
That's the first episode, yeah. The boyfriend. Yeah. Ozark. But my girlfriend she was out. It was too violent. It was too violent for her. And she said every character's unlikable. I go, that's why I like it. They're all unlikable. This is great.
Reminds me of your hometown.
Exactly. Reminds me of growing up in Essex. Nobody was likable. But yeah, Ozark, if you don't like a lot of violence, you don't want to watch Ozark. But Ozark's really good. Ozark was fantastic.
Thing I remember from Sopranos is like, you remember he going, Ma, we hijacked the truck and got you a new DVD player.
Yeah, Sopranos is right. I love to go rewatch Sopranos now that it's over.
No, I love mob movies like Goodfellas and stuff like that. So I imagine I would like it. I just, again, don't have the time to watch it.
You got to get the time to invest to go like in our like slower season. Watch a little Sopranos.
Yeah,
You'll like it.
I'll try.
All right, 803-404-6100. We got someone in there reminding you that James Gandolfini is no longer alive. We appreciate that.
We appreciate that. Wayne says, I don't believe Deion Sanders' personality works well with grown men in the NFL. I don't believe his name benefits him in the NFL as much as it did college when it comes to recruiting.
I don't disagree with that. I don't. I think it's an interesting text. I think we've talked about this before. Yes, Deion is looked at in the NFL as most likely the greatest cover corner in the history of the game.
Yeah.
Basically, he looked at Darrelle Revis and said, hold my beer, bro. But I see where the texture's going. That cachet, even though these high school kids never saw Deion play, Deion's legend is constant, right?
It's its own, I don't know, its own empire.
There's certain guys like Deion, Ray Lewis. There's certain guys, even though a kid didn't see him play, they've heard of these people. Brady will be that way, and Peyton Manning.
Sure.
But I think it's different with an 18-year-old and Deion's doing the Deion shtick, and then Deion trying to do the Deion shtick to grown men in an NFL locker room.
Yep.
So I don't disagree with that texter with Deion's personality and who Deion is probably does work better on college players than it would on grown men NFL locker room. That's an interesting point. I don't disagree with.
Doesn't mean he won't try it.
He might, and it'll be fun if it happens. Get your popcorn ready in the words of the great T.O. Halftime show, football coming up. Halftime show. David Dare, Tyler Head, Terry Ford. We're here till 3 o'clock. Basketball, hoops. We got a bunch of it this week. Starting off tomorrow, 5:30 pregame, 6 o'clock tip. South Carolina and Vandy. That's on 107.5 The Game here in Columbia, and our affiliate 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. Thursday, Carolina calls with Lamont Paris and Derek Scott. That's 6 o'clock here in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach. On our sister station, 98.5 WOMG, the women will take on Alabama. Again, 6:30 p.m. pregame, 7 o'clock tip.
What happens tomorrow at Vanderbilt drastically alters the type of questions Paris gets asked on Thursday.
Oh, no doubt. Whichever way.
Whichever way.
I mean, you can beat Vandy. All right. After that great showing against Auburn, now you beat Vanderbilt. Blah, 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 blah. Whoa. Now you're winless in conference play and you just lost to Vanderbilt. Yeah. You are correct, sir. All right. We do football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on The Game. Of course, South Carolina adding through the portal defensive back Brandon Cisse. Played at NC State. Again, good Pro Football Focus grades. A guy that can come in, play corner. He's played some slot. He will be a very interesting piece in your defensive backfield puzzle. So now, as pretty much this version of the portal closes, and you brought this up earlier when I came in from my nap, is that, okay, what's left? I'd love to see them get another edge pass rusher with a little bit more of a resume. And it would be nice to see a wide receiver come in with a resume. I remember Kyle Kennard came in, I believe, later in the process as well out of the portal. He wasn't quick early right out the gate, was he?
I can't remember, honestly.
I know that Knight was later in the process.
Sure.
But it would be nice to find an edge pass rusher. I mean, you'd love to find another Kyle Kennard, but just another edge pass rusher with a history of been there, done that in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Because we saw if you got two guys coming off the edge, you both can get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
Kind of makes things a lot easier.
And look, right now Dylan Stewart is going to command most of the attention given what he did as a true freshman. That's going to open up that other side for whoever that other person is. And again, if you can get somebody with that more of that reputation that makes those teams think, at least right out of the jump beginning of the season, hey, watch out for this guy because here's what he did at whatever school he's coming from. That allows Stewart and these other guys to have success too. So again, there's still plenty of time. And look, that's a spot where, unfortunately, when you have a high level of production, you get snatched up pretty quick. So could there be somebody from an Ohio State or Notre Dame that are wrapping up their seasons in a couple days that might jump in next week? Who knows? And again, we'll see what happens in the portal, as the spring portion rolls along. But again, not done, but filled out the gaps, at least at this point in time.
And I guess the hope, if you can't get another, and look, getting an edge pass rusher is tough, obviously, just like getting a wide receiver with a resume. But like Kyle Kennard last year, I mean, he had a good year. But no one was projecting him to win the Nagurski.
No.
And so...
half of his sacks last year at Georgia Tech 2 years ago now came in one game against Wake Forest. And he had 8 total in the season. Respectable number, certainly. But like you said, nobody was saying, wow, this guy's going to work his way to maybe being a first-round draft pick at South Carolina. And obviously, we're thankful for what he was able to come in here and do. And I think... if you do get anybody with a decent level of production at edge from whatever school, he's going to be the direct comparison. Okay, is he the next Kyle Kennard? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I think you have to temper your expectations. Kennard was such a rare instance of somebody coming in, being good, and then leaving here being great.
And the other part is he doesn't have to be Kyle Kennard because, again, Dylan Stewart's going to pull double teams.
Yes.
You just have to be able to win one-on-one. And I think Kennard was in by now. I think South Carolina had Kennard by now last year at this time, I believe. But, again, if you just get someone with some experience of getting after quarterbacks, and even if, let's say, okay, had 3-4 sacks last year, whatever, just someone has had some type of success, rushing the passer, that would be nice. But if you can't,
He was a December guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty quick in the process.
So they already had him by now last year. It would be nice to get someone with some level of experience in playing the edge. But if you can't, your hope is who you brought in through the portal or of the guys you have left, someone can benefit of having Dylan Stewart on the other side. And that's what you're hoping for.
Sure.
So I'd love to see that, and obviously get a wide receiver if you could do that. And they got a couple of those in the spring last year, if my memory serves me.
Yep.
All right, so South Carolina right now feels like wrapping up the portal for this portion. And they're 18th in the on-3 rankings, like we said last hour. All right, so the NFL, this is interesting. We come off of playoffs, and again, last night, the Rams just smacked the Vikings all over the place. And we talked about Sam Darnold earlier. I guess the other conversation is, if you're the Vikings now, do you say, we're going to go back to the original plan, which was J.J. McCarthy? Or do you say, well, we'd still love to have Sam Darnold come back because McCarthy was hurt all year, but now we can get him for less money?
How much less is the question.
And then the other part is, has Darnold really hurt himself on the open market that will come later? And the Vikings now will say, well, now he's in our price range to try to bring him back. That's going to be where this is going to get interesting for the Vikings. And obviously they've got to get another offensive lineman or two. And, but they have the weapons everywhere on offense with Jefferson and Addison and, Hawkinson at tight end. And if they bring back Jones, the running back, who I love his skill set, if they can, again, you got to make up your mind on your quarterback. And I feel like, look, if you don't think J.J. McCarthy would be ready to take over the controls next year, then you offer to bring Darnold back. This Daniel Jones thing, look, I get what they've done in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins and with Sam Darnold. But if you just think you are so fantastic in your quarterback development and your quarterback-friendly offense, you can put Daniel, I love to give the ball to the other team, Jones, the keys to be your stopgap for J.J. McCarthy. I don't know, man. No,
to me, the Daniel Jones signing was very much like, this is a guy, in a lot of ways similar to Sam Darnold, that just has not had success so far in his career, that, like you said, is a stopgap if you need it, but not somebody that you have long-term, success with. And I think it was more of, okay, well, in case Sam Darnold gets hurt, he's somebody we can plug in and finish out the rest of the season with. Obviously for them, thankfully they didn't have to do that. But yeah, I don't think he gives you anything better than what J.J. McCarthy's offering. Based on what we heard in the offseason leading up to when McCarthy got injured, it seemed like he had what they needed and was getting ready to command the offense for, his rookie season before, the injury happened. So I had actually forgotten Daniel Jones was on the team until they showed him on the sidelines last night. And I was like, it's a big difference from being in New York right now, huh?
Yeah, the only thing, those teams are so close. Organizations are so close. The only thing, look, the thing about it is, look, what Kevin O'Connell has done in Minnesota is fantastic. By the way, the idea that they wouldn't bring him back or give him a new contract is asinine. I've heard this, and I'm like, are you serious? Now this year is over. Right now, you better be putting together a contract extension for O'Connell. He has proven to be a really good head coach.
Bad coaches don't win 14 games.
No, and get in the playoffs multiple times the way O'Connell has. And to make his system of offense so quarterback friendly that you can plug in Sam Darnold. But you don't want to get to the point where your arrogance says, we can make Daniel Jones a good quarterback too. We can make anybody. And then you start to get into that. Well, slow your roll.
And we obviously use the Shanahan offense as the prime example of that. Because again, they went to Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, and obviously Brock Purdy's having success. And when the question comes up this offseason of, okay, do you pay Brock Purdy or do you go out and find somebody else? The thinking for a lot of people is, well, anybody can be successful in this offense. Not necessarily. You don't necessarily know that. Hey, I don't know. Maybe Sam Darnold goes for the 49ers for all we know. But you do have to be careful of that, because not everybody can come in and be a success.
Yeah, and so that's my thing.
Sam Darnold was with the 49ers last year, by the way, for those that don't remember.
Yeah, he was. He was hanging around backing up Brock Purdy.
Yep.
So we'll see where it goes with the Vikings. But that thing is all built to get back going again next year on the same type of path. They will probably lose their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, to a head coaching gig, which leads us to Dan Graziano, ESPN.com, has put out his predictions for the head coaching openings in the NFL. Let's start off with the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
I like Dan Graziano. I do. His prediction, I hope for the Bears, is not true. Brian Flores. Here's why. Look, I've said this before. Head coaches need to be leaders and culture builders more than X's and O geniuses. Brian Flores won games in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
But Brian Flores almost ruined Tua Tagovailoa's career.
Yep.
I'm sorry. And they're saying, oh, Brian Flores has learned his lesson. He's different in Minnesota. He's this, he's that. If I'm going to interview Brian Flores, if I'm the Bears, I'd sit him down and go, Brian, how you doing, man? You want something to drink? You good? You comfortable? You want a different chair? You everything good? Okay, Brian. What would you do different with your quarterback? B, who you hiring as your offensive coordinator? And C, you're not planning on ruining his career like Tua's. That's my 3 questions.
Yeah.
And then you answer them, and I might go, hey, Brian, it was great having you in. We'll Uber you to the airport.
Sure.
Because, look, Caleb Williams this year was underwhelming. To Caleb Williams, I mean, look, we can blame all these other things, but at the end of the day, Caleb Williams also didn't play very well. Let's just get that out of the way. Yes, Keenan Allen dropped 1 million balls. Yes, the offensive line wasn't as good this year in pass protection as they were last year. Yes, they had rotating door at offensive coordinator and head coach. The thing basically was a bleep show. But Caleb Williams also didn't play well. And one of the biggest things about Caleb Williams in college, you saw in the NFL, was he struggled running the structure part of an offense. He's better off script, improvisational skills, but dropping back, scanning the field, processing, throwing to the open guy, that's where he struggles. You better bring in an offensive guy who can improve him in the structure because he's got all the other skills. And Brian Flores, what he did to Tua, I got huge questions about putting him anywhere near a talent like Caleb Williams.
Especially for a guy like Caleb Williams that wears his heart on his sleeve to a degree. We saw that in college. We've seen that in the pros so far where he can be a tad emotional at times. And a guy that's going to potentially tear you down and tell you you're worthless and nothing, probably not a great fit. Also, I just think with the fact that you're banking so much on Caleb Williams, you'd probably want an offensive-minded head coach, wouldn't you think?
See, this is the thing. I'll be honest. You know, they were talking about it on ESPN yesterday, and they brought up Mike McCarthy. And, again, I think Mike McCarthy gets a bad rap in a lot of ways. I think he's a better coach than people want to give him credit for. Yes, game management skills are terrible. I will raise my hand on that. But look at Mike McCarthy when it comes to quarterbacks and offense. This might be the right guy, at least in the beginning stages of Caleb Williams' career, to be able to develop Caleb Williams, to build an offense that will help Caleb Williams process and go through structure that he needs to learn to do.
Sure.
Quarterbacks got better under McCarthy.
Yep.
I'm not saying the Bears will win a Super Bowl with McCarthy, but I think McCarthy can get them going down the right path. And McCarthy, look at his record.
Yeah.
This is not a boob.
No, it's just the playoffs were the issue.
The playoffs
but the regular
in Dallas
season,
were the problem.
Great. It's great.
So I that might be the way to go. You know he can win as a head coach. You know he can do the right things you need to do as a head coach, but also offensively, he might be the guy to help Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and again, he's not going to do what Brian Flores did.
You are a piece of nothing.
Now, you do have to bring up the concern that the Dallas locker room was a mess this year. And is that all on Mike McCarthy? Maybe not necessarily, but you are the one running the show here, and that is concerning.
Are you running the show in Dallas?
In Dallas, maybe not.
That's you never heard locker room issues with McCarthy in Green Bay.
No, and given the personality of Aaron Rodgers, he seemed to kind of keep it under wraps for the most part.
I feel like Aaron Rodgers had more of a problem with the locker room than Mike McCarthy.
Maybe so.
So in Dallas, it's always, does the head coach really run the locker room in Dallas, or does the goober in the owner's box? I will continue on with this. This is an interesting little exercise. And speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, Dan gives you his thought of who is going to be the next coach. And you know what? I can see this. It's a halftime show. We talk football in the 1 o'clock hour right here on The Game. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour on the halftime show, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. All right, so we're looking at this Dan Graziano post on ESPN. He's kind of guessing who will be the new head coaches with all these vacancies, and we just went over the Chicago one again. I would, and I'm not predicting, but I think the more I look at the list of all these people, the more I definitely wouldn't hire Brian Flores, but I think Mike McCarthy, with the combination of success as a head coach and success improving quarterbacks and the system of offenses he runs to help improve quarterbacks, might be your guy.
And on offense, you have the pieces there in place to be successful. It's not like, okay, all you have is Caleb Williams. You have pieces around him that, again, you just need the right set of eyes, the right guy to scheme it up the right way to hopefully, be successful. So it's not a tear down rebuild, you know. And again, Eberflus just, for one, he couldn't manage the clock, but obviously couldn't get the job done, and that's why I ended up moving on from him. But I think McCarthy would be a smart hire.
He kind of Eberflused.
By the way, you want to talk about coaching from the Packers to the Cowboys, potentially the Bears, hitting three of the most storied franchises in NFL history.
And you're Mike McCarthy. Be pretty interesting.
That'd be something.
All right, speaking of the Dallas Cowboys are next on Dan Graziano's list. We talked about the whole entertainment aspect of Deion Sanders talking to Jerry Jones about the gig. I think Troy Aikman summed it up best. And, I'm starting to...
I have that for you.
I know, so I got Dave ready.
Yes.
He's going to play it. I really appreciate Troy Aikman more and more of this. I think Troy Aikman's gotten to the point of this. Hey, I'm Troy Aikman. I'm a Hall of Fame quarterback. I've got 3 rings. I've got tons of money in the bank. Women think I'm pretty good looking. I don't care. I'm going to say whatever is on my mind. I'm not going to be mean when I say it, but in a matter-of-fact way, I'm going to tell you how I feel, whether I'm doing a game or whether you ask me a question. I just find him refreshingly more and more honest all the time. A lot of quarterbacks call a game and never criticize the quarterback. Or if they do it, it comes off as like I'm being petty.
Yeah.
Aikman's that wasn't a good decision. That wasn't a good throw. He's got to do this better, or that's not the way you go about it. It's nothing personal. It's just I'm telling you what I think honestly, because I'm getting paid to do this, and you as a viewer deserve my objectivity.
Yeah, I think he's great at it.
I really enjoy Aikman. Here's Troy Aikman being asked on the set on ESPN.
It's pregame last night.
A pregame about how desirable is the Dallas Cowboy head coaching job. This answer sums it up. Cut 6, Dave.
Well, I thought Mike McCarthy would be the head coach, so this is a bit of a surprise for me today that he's not going to be. And what went into those conversations that Schefter talked about, I'm not exactly sure, but it suggests that there's not a real plan. I mean, and the fact that they haven't had the opportunity to maybe interview a Ben Johnson and some of these others, Aaron Glenn. I think that what Schefter said as far as Kellen Moore being a candidate, that seems logical to me. A guy who has familiarity with the building. He's worked obviously with the Cowboys and with Jerry Jones, and they know each other very well. In fact, when Mike McCarthy got the job, it was told to Mike that Kellen Moore would be the offensive coordinator. So that's how much the Jones family thinks of him. Beyond that, it's hard to imagine. As far as a coveted job, I don't know that that's accurate. I mean, really? I do think the Cowboys are obviously a high-profile team. Whoever is covered or whoever is head coach of that team is certainly going to draw a lot of attention. But I think most football people that take over as a head coach, they want to do it on their terms.
That's fair.
That's hard to do. And it's, if you take a Dan Campbell, for instance, is Dan Campbell if he's with the Dallas Cowboys? It's hard to imagine that he is. It's hard to imagine that a lot of these coaches might be. So I love the Dallas Cowboys. I played there for 12 years. I wish them well. But to say that it's a coveted job, I'm not sure I would necessarily agree with that.
Ding, ding, ding. He's so right. And again, when goobers like us talk about it and say it, you're like, whatever. But when a guy who played there for 12 years, a guy who understands the backstory of Jerry Jones as an owner and what goes on with the Cowboys, for that guy right there, Troy Aikman, to say it's not a coveted job, because again, Dan Campbell can't be Dan Campbell. Mike Tomlin can't be Mike Tomlin. John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh can't be who they are there. Bill Parcells, the minute he got there, he regretted what he did. And Jerry only hired him so you get the stadium.
Yeah, because you go in understanding it's not your show.
No, it's
not. You're a part of it. You are going to be the puppet that Jerry Jones is going to pull. And again, you're the one that gets to wear the headset on the sidelines on Sunday, but you don't run the show the other days of the week, seemingly.
No, I mean, that's why he should be called Jim Henson, and the next head coach should be Miss Piggy, or what'd you say yesterday?
Fozzie Bear.
Fozzie Bear. That's who it is. And that's why I think it'll be Kellen Moore.
Yeah,
I
as he
do.
alluded to, and again was on the staff there. They had success on offense in the regular season, at least. That certainly helped them out. And again, Kellen Moore is a guy that's not very brash, not very outspoken, and you can just strap those little strings to him and pull him in whatever direction you
And
want.
Kellen will be happy because he's got
fine
head
with that.
coach of the Dallas Cowboys on his resume.
He'll be making a ton of money, be a head coach, and again, he'll be the one likely calling the plays and all that kind of stuff. And Jerry can do his press conferences and radio hits, and they're not going to butt heads probably.
And Kellen Moore was a good leader when he was a quarterback at Boise State. And he was a good guy, good leader. Not, like you said, not the most demonstrative cat in the world. But I see that's the perfect next guy because he's familiar with the Cowboys. Jones' family loved him. They can bring him back and control him, and he'll be happy to do it because he'll look at his bank account every month and he'll look at his title. And that's the guy. To me, I think it's Kellen Moore or Mike Zimmer is already in-house. But Zimmer, he can be he's got a little edge to him. He might end up choke slamming Jerry at some point. So I think it's Kellen Moore.
Yeah, they might butt heads a little bit, but I think Kellen Moore makes the most sense. As entertained as I would be by Dion, I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't either. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars, we forget they're in the league half the time.
They're almost in London for crying out loud.
Oh, trust me. Shad Khan would love to move him to London. The prediction here is Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. I'll say the same thing I'm going to say about Ben Johnson. They got Ben Johnson getting the gig in Vegas. Just because a guy can draw up an offense, dazzle you on a whiteboard, be able to call plays, doesn't mean he's a head coach.
There are more failed coordinators cast aside by not making his head coach than there are that have made it to the Hall of Fame. So again, this happens every year. There's the hotshot coordinators, and Ben Johnson's name's been around for a couple of years, so we're familiar with him and obviously seeing what he's done with the Lions defense, especially this year, and just how dazzling they've been. But again, you don't really know. And if you have a good enough structure to where you're not having to rebuild the thing completely, okay, that might work. But if you are truly down in the dumps like the Jacksonville Jaguars are, I think you do need someone that has more established culture building to come in and right the ship.
Yeah, and they thought they had that guy, Doug Peterson, and looked good in year one, and then the thing has gone sideways. So there feels like to me there's more of an issue there when it comes to management and ownership because Peterson it just cratered, and I don't know why, but I'm with you. I think you need a culture builder, you need a leader, you need a guy to take that thing over. I get the idea we got to get somebody to get Trevor Lawrence right. Well, you had him right for a little bit. Now he's wrong again. How much? I mean, I don't know if maybe Trevor Lawrence, there's only a certain ceiling on Trevor Lawrence. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there to unpack with Jacksonville. Yeah, do you need a quarterback whisperer for Lawrence to heal his psyche or whatever's going on with him? And he has been hurt, to be fair. But you need a leader and a culture builder to walk in there and say, all right, enough of this garbage. Here's what we do to be successful. And that might be a guy who has to bring in an offensive guru to help Trevor Lawrence. So, and the same thing with Ben Johnson in Vegas. I don't know. I've heard Ben Johnson not the greatest interviewer in the world. Does that matter? No, he just might not be a good interviewer.
He schemes up pretty plays.
Exactly, sure does. But can he be a head coach?
That'll get you a job somewhere.
Now, he's watched a great culture builder and leader close up in Dan Campbell.
He has. That can rub off on you.
What does that mean? I don't know. Aaron Glenn to New Orleans. Again, it feels like it's just someone's going to give him a job. It's his time.
Sure.
And be honest, doesn't matter who gets the Jets gig. Woody Johnson's still the owner. It's a disaster. Doesn't matter. Give it to Rex Ryan. Give it to Meg Ryan. Doesn't matter. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Check some college football next on the game. We roll football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the Game. Hey, this Friday, we're going to be hanging out with our buds at Pro Swing Golf on Forest Drive, right here in Columbia. We'll be doing a live show. They're doing their soft openings and everything else. And, if you want to play some golf indoors, weather stinks. Right down the road, Forest Drive, Pro Swing Golf, 803-528-1617 is the number. And we'll be there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. this Friday. And you hear that right here on the Game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. Again, we'll be doing our live shows from there on Friday. And they have the first annual Winter Indoor Golf Tournament for Pro Swing Golf. The first annual Pro Swing Golf Classic coming up end of January, $150 to register, a two-man team. Bookings are available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Food's included from Bonefish. Yeah. So, we're talking good stuff. You can win $1,000 for first place, $750 for second place, $500 for third. Plus, there'll be a drawing for Gamecock baseball tickets as well. Again, 803-528-1617. All right, the college football world has been rocked by this crazy affair of Nick Saban and Sidney Thomas. This is funny.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
It's hilarious.
Now, when did you become aware of Miss Sidney Thomas?
Just here recently.
Yeah. The phenomenon.
Yes, the phenomenon of our social media world. This happens.
Yes.
We had the girl.
Yes.
And now
I think is getting ready to go to prison or something like that.
Yeah, she's got. Is her 15 minutes up?
Oh, it was up a long time ago.
Well, the old Haktui girl or whatever she is. Social media doesn't. Sidney Thomas, again, if you see her, you go, I can see why social media likes her. So it's interesting because she was on a podcast or something. What was it? She was doing some interview or some podcast?
A podcast or something along those lines where she revealed somebody had slid into her DMs.
Right. Some SEC coach had slid into her DMs. And so everybody thinks it's who?
Lane, of course.
Lane Kiffin. So Lane Kiffin deciding to have a little fun with this, and it's perfect, Lane Kiffin. Kiffin puts out a picture of Sidney Thomas with a former SEC coach.
When she tweeted the picture, because I believe she's actually an Alabama
she's
student.
She's an Alabama student, and she's a huge fan of Alabama football.
She met Nick Saban at seemingly some golf event and took a picture with him. Look, anybody that came across Nick Saban would, of course,
take a picture
with him.
Right.
And, in true Lane fashion, he saw his chance to stir the pot a little bit and took his opportunity.
Well, here's the picture I guess she's talking
There's
about.
There's the proof. Roll Tide.
And there's Sidney Thomas with Nick Saban. And Lane put it out there for fun because Lane knows everybody's thinking it's Lane.
Oh, sure.
And could it be Lane? Sure. It also couldn't be Lane. I don't know.
I also saw a lot of Hugh Freezes get thrown out there.
Wait a minute. Hugh Freeze would never do such a thing.
No, well, at least not on his normal phone.
Yeah, true.
Find the other one in his office and check those DMs.
So, anyway, it's hilarious. It's so funny because it's Nick. And look, he's been married to Miss Terry about 1 million years. He always talks about her. And now this happens, and it's hilarious.
That was the funny part is when you read the replies, so many people are like, Miss Terry's going to beat you over the head, Lane.
It's so funny. It was classic Kiffin. He deserves a thumbs up.
Now, do you think just for taking the photo, Miss Terry's like, Nick, what's going on?
What are we doing here?
I didn't know who she was. Sure.
Right. Nick.
Hey, that list of chores just got a little bit longer.
It's so funny because he's the last guy you would ever think would get involved in any of this mess.
Now, she did not specify head coach.
No, she said coach. I think
that's important to note here.
She said SEC coach.
God, every coaching staff has 93 coaches on them. So this could be a grad assistant at Arkansas for all we know.
Absolutely.
Or it could be Bobby Petrino.
No. Why would you think it would be
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Did you play volleyball by chance?
You want a motorcycle ride? Never as a career cratered so fast. Wow.
But he still gets chances.
Oh, yeah, because he's a high-level coach.
He's a good play caller, high offensive mind.
When you're a high-level coach, You're always going to get chances.
The funny thing to me is, and again, he's now back at Arkansas after the fiasco and the scandal, and I know it was a different AD and all that kind of stuff back then, but the implication 10 years ago is there's no way Bobby Petrino ever sets foot in Fayetteville, Arkansas again.
Ever.
We need help on offense. Come on back.
Second thought, hey, Bobby. Well, the thing, too, about that real quick, and then we'll jump back. What happened with the athletic director, and really why Petrino got fired, let's just tell the truth here. Bobby didn't tell the AD.
He didn't tell anyone.
He didn't say anything. So the AD gets blindsided.
Yeah, because he was told it was just a single accident by himself, right? There was nobody else on the bike.
Remember he had the neck brace? And
brace. What a photo.
Oh, it's fantastic. Did he have his hog pig suey hat on?
He did. Or no, he had the Sugar Bowl hat on.
Had the Sugar Bowl
hat on.
So the AD, look, let's just be honest here while we're being honest. The AD didn't know, so the AD gets blindsided. If the AD knows, the AD can find a way to help him cover this up because Bobby Petrino is winning double-digit games in Fayetteville.
Sure.
They're making a ton of money.
Sure.
Everything's going great. They're on the fast track to competing big time in college football, and then the motorcycle ride.
Yes.
So if the AD would have known, maybe we can help do something about this. But the AD got blindsided. So when you get blindsided as the AD, sorry, Bobby, can't help you.
Yeah.
And Petrino's gone. But anyway, it would be great if there's a picture of Petrino, too. That would have been so good. Anyway, all right, so that's just a fun little thing happening with Lane Kiffin and Sidney Thomas. Okay, according to Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, a massive rule change regarding player injuries could come to college football. During the AFCA Coaches Convention in Charlotte, Dellinger reported if a player is injured during a game, he'll have to be sidelined for the remainder of the drive. That's in an effort to eliminate faking injuries, basically to slow play. We've talked about something like that, like keep him out of drive, heck, keep him out the rest of a quarter, whatever. Punish teams. And look, if a guy's really injured, it's not an issue because he's not coming back in anyway.
Yeah, sure.
But, if you're faking injuries, this will slow it down.
Yeah.
But here's I guess my question is, it's just going to be a uniform rule. If you're hurt and play stops for you to be taken off the field, you can't come back in for the rest of the drive.
It seems to be that way, and again, that's moving in the right direction. Injuries are so tricky, and people have thrown out make him sit the rest of the game. We'll penalize him a timeout because. Again, there are real injuries that happen. And if you have a guy that legitimately gets hurt in the first quarter and is able to come back in the third quarter, I mean, you shouldn't prevent them from coming back in the game, but you do have to do something because this has gotten out of hand. And Lane Kiffin, as we talked about a moment ago, is one of the ones that exploited this rule. Again, if there's a gray area and you're pushing it to its limit and they can't stop you, you're going to keep doing that. So again, you got to get a wrangle on it some kind of way. All these coaches know what's being done. They know they're doing it to some degree, and that's a step in the right direction. I'm sure there's a unintended consequence or backdoor way around it that we're not thinking of that will come to fruition as any rule change does. But I understand the premise.
By the way, who's really happy about all this? Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
What else are you going to say, right?
Listen, it almost felt like he was doing it to show how stupid the rule was. Like, if you're not going to stop me, I'm going to have an injury timeout every other play when you're on offense and trying to run up and down the field. Like, it was so aggressively obvious. But again, you can't, because it is an injury, and you can't say, well, get up, son, you're not injured. How do you know? How do you know his leg's not broken? How do you know he didn't tear his ACL or whatever it is? Like, it's so hard to be strict about this because we're dealing with injuries.
Well, again, you don't want to penalize a team for a real injury. And that's why this is, to me, I go back to that. I like the idea of uniform it. You got to sit out the rest of the drive, and let's go play football. And that might slow. You're never going to end this, but you can slow it down.
Sure.
And like you can, I'll give you one real quick, okay? If I'm going to fake an injury, I'm going to put a guy on the field for a play who might be my third guy in my rotational depth chart.
Yeah.
Fall down, fake an injury. I don't care if you come back for the rest of the drive or not. I need to slow this team down.
Now, what happens if this is a drive going down the field at the end of the game and quarterback, dings his hand on a play and, out my hand. Okay, well, now he's out for the rest of the drive. Can he come back in in a goal line situation?
That's the thing.
I don't know. There's a lot of areas to this.
Also, the coaches are talking about moving the transfer portal window to January and make it 10 days. Which, we'll talk about on the other side and get our Firehouse subtext the hour, 803-404-6100. It's football in the 1 o'clock hour on the halftime show, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors in the game. Firehouse Sub text the hour at 803-404-6100 here on the Halftime Show. What you got, man?
Nameless texter, injury timeout should be a separate category timeout. Keep track separately, and when they're used up, you get penalized with real timeouts. That works along with the player having to sit out for the rest of the drive. I get where you're coming from, but what you don't want to do, and this is why this is so tricky, you don't want to de-emphasize somebody that is injured getting like the care that they need. Okay, ow, I hurt my leg on this tackle. I'm going to sit on the field. Let trainers come over and take me out. It's because if you're potentially penalizing your team, like let's say you've already used up your injury timeouts. I am a defensive back and I get hurt on a tackle. Well, now I'm incentivized to stay in the game and not get my injury treated because I don't want to hurt my team because the other team's driving down the field or something like that. Like that's where you get kind of tricky with these kind of things.
Because now the player could get hurt more.
Exactly.
A, and B, you're really playing 11 on 10.
And again, that's why this is so hard to be strictful and enforce up to this point because you're dealing with injuries. And again, it may not look like something, but it can be something really serious. And, it could be a torn ACL. It could be whatever. And I know home fans tend to just boo injuries in general now, but most of the time it is legitimate.
Yeah, that's why, and look, I get skating rules, and I get trying to take every little advantage and every loophole. But this one bugs me from the perspective of you're screwing with injuries. And because of your gamesmanship, something could really seriously happen to a player because of all this. And that's why, whether it's Kiffin, Bielema, whatever guys are doing it, I mean, Heupel did it at Tennessee when they were playing Ole Miss. I think it's honestly, I think, and I'm trying to be nice when I say it, I think the coaches that do it, I lose respect for them because they're screwing with something that could be serious. I don't like it. And
some of them, are so obvious about it. We've seen the guys that, hey, run to the sideline, suddenly they act like they got shot. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to do it, at least make it look real. You know what I mean? To where there's not this very obvious fake injury taking place where your lineman that was fine 2 seconds ago is now laying flat on his back with his arms sprawled out. You know what I mean?
Well, my favorite is they're like walking up to, they're going to get ready to get in the huddle. Then they look over at the fake injury coach, and all of a sudden they just fall down.
Yeah. And that coach is doing the get awful. Down thing. Like it's very obvious. And yes, those things are very clear to look at and say, yeah, he's clearly faking the injury. But again, there's ways around this. There's ways to make it look like you were injured, got rolled up on, or whatever it may be. And it's a very tricky rule, and it's going to take a couple paragraphs to really vet this thing out. It can't just be, hey, if you get injured, you're out for the rest of the drive.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Also, the coaches at their meetings talking about the transfer portal, they'd like to move the portal to January, give it a 10-day window. Totally understand. Look, they have to do something about the calendar.
Yes.
And if you do move the portal into early January or January-ish, I mean, now you got a problem with the college football playoff. So maybe you grandfather in what they do now with the portal.
But it's only a handful of teams.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So you grandfather them in separate.
Sure.
And everybody else has an early January portal window once all the other bowl games are done. And then you don't run into a guy leaving his team right before the college football playoff because he wants to go be a starting quarterback somewhere like the kid from Penn State.
Yep.
Or you having guys, look, again, do I think it's fair that, Duke was a 9-win team, but they play their bowl game with their 9th-string quarterback because everybody's hitting the portal?
Yep.
I just think there's something wrong that you have to leave your team right before a bowl game. I know bowl games don't matter what they used to. I get it. But still, the optics of this is bad.
Sure.
And if you can move the portal into early January or after all the bowl games of the college football playoff are done, then it's cleaner. You get another thing out of December, and guys can play for their teams. And again, there's other hurdles to jump as well, but that will be one less issue if you can move it.
Yeah, and again, it allows you to space these things out a little bit because, again, you're already doing 99% of your high school signing on early signing day because the February signing day is an afterthought at this point. Mm-hmm. You have your bowl game and all that kind of stuff, and then you can start focusing on the next season. Because like you said, you got guys hopping in the portal, and 2 days before a bowl game, oh wait, their quarterback and their starting wide receiver, they're both gone. So that changes all that. And coaches have enough to deal with. I think this will help them out a lot, and make it make a little bit more sense in terms of a structured calendar.
And maybe again, I get it that classes are starting in January, and the next semester is starting. So there's some things you got to navigate there as well, with the schools and admission and getting people into classes and all that. Look, all of it, I mean, I know we laugh, but they actually go to class still. They're actually college students still.
Yeah,
kind of, sort of.
For now.
For now. But so those are all gymnastics you have to go through as well. But if you can move the portal into an early January situation, you make it 10 days long. Players still have their chances to do what they need to do. But to me, it makes things make a little bit more sense in a sport that makes no sense.
Sure.
So we appreciate the Firehouse Sub text, the hour 803-404-6100. And football. Wrapped up another hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. What's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions is coming up. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Dare. It's a halftime show. If you haven't heard, obviously South Carolina seems like they finish up their portal work with a defensive back with a really nice resume. We'll update you on that next on the halftime show here on The Game. All right. 2 o'clock, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. South Carolina, if you haven't heard by now for whatever reason, NC State transfer Brandon Cisse, defensive back, played a lot of corner, played some slot, number 9 corner in the transfer portal. Good get by South Carolina.
Yeah, no, his numbers are really good. Obviously, a lot of experience playing these past couple of years at NC State. And again, you're losing O'Donnell Fortune. And look, you've had a run of really solid cornerbacks these past couple of years that all have pro potential, and Brandon Cisse seems to potentially be the next one to kind of fit into that mold. It's going to be a competition. You do have, Collier and Jalewis Solomon, guys like that, Kari Swain in that room that are going to be competing for those spots. But I'd say Cisse comes in with a definite advantage in some ways.
Cisse, if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades, again, they're not everything or the end-all be-all in life, but they just give us kind of a window. Cisse overall a 73 defensive grade, which is good.
Yeah.
You get over 70, you're doing good. 78.5 in run support as a DB. 84 when it comes to tackling, which is a phenomenal grade.
Yep.
A 70.3 coverage grade, which again, you get over 70. That's solid.
Sure.
70.6, I'm sorry, coverage grade. And he can blitz a little bit, 77 pass rush grade. So he's a good all-around numbers if you're looking at Pro Football Focus for Brandon Cisse. And it feels like that's a wrap for right now in the portal, but it's going to be opening again.
Yep.
Coming up in the spring. So South Carolina, when you look at it, you added a couple of DBs. You've added an edge pass rusher. You've added, 3 interior defensive linemen, added 3 offensive linemen, added a running back. You added who could be your quarterback of the future, possibly. So you've added a couple linebackers through the portal. You've hit a lot of your spots that you need to hit.
You have, and you go into the spring now with comfort at depth in most of these spots. And again, you can't always count on being able to pull guys in the spring. Remember 2 years ago, we were saying, well, they definitely need to get a running back in the spring that's, performed at the, FBS level, and they weren't able to do that. So you don't go into the spring with an absolute need anywhere, but if you can find some guys, you can find another receiver, maybe find an edge guy that's had some production somewhere, at the SEC level or Big Ten level or something like that, or ACC level, whatever it may be, then you add them to it. But again, you're not desperately saying, oh, if we don't get this by the end of spring, we're in trouble.
Yeah, if you look at the list, again, Jaylen Brown, the edge pass rusher from Missouri, former 4-star kid, didn't play a lot at Missouri last year, a lot of potential, high ceiling. Nick Sharp, offensive lineman, Wake, played a lot of games. Some good grades, some solid grades in blocking for Nick Sharp from Pro Football Focus. Jordan Dingle, really a block-first tight end at Kentucky. He caught some balls, but he's not looked at as a big playmaker in the passing game, but a guy that can do a variety of things for you.
And I would imagine Michael Smith's probably taken over that role that, Josh Simon is leaving behind as kind of your main pass-catching tight end. But again, if you can have a guy like Pringle in addition to Brady Hunt to kind of block and maybe catch a pass here or two, that's solid to add to the room.
Yeah. And then you get Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, defensive lineman from A&M. Also, you bring in Devontae Miles, defensive lineman from Bowling Green. Brownlow-Dindy is very interesting, former high recruit, high 4-star, some services was a 5-star. Didn't play much at A&M for a couple years. Injuries have been a problem. But another guy with high ceiling, very high ceiling.
Yeah, you obviously, hope it's one of those situations saying, okay, well, he was just at a team that had a lot of talent, wasn't able to find his way on the field. And again, sometimes you can get him in here and, work with this coaching staff on the defense, then get him to a different level where he is going to be able to go out there and be productive. So again, you didn't have a wow flash, oh my God, this guy's a superstar like a Rattler or a Rocket Sanders, or even, I wouldn't say Kennard was a superstar coming in. He was a solid producer. You got a lot of guys that are going to have to prove themselves at this level, but doesn't mean that they can't.
No, and again, you added 2 linebackers who, again, high ceiling guys. Sean Murphy from Florida State and Justin O.
Oh, so Wes actually nailed it perfectly earlier.
Okoronkwo?
I believe Okoronkwo. And I said I was going to take the little clip of him saying it, and we're going to keep it on the hotkeys, so that way we don't have to say it.
And former Alabama linebacker.
Justin Okoronkwo.
Well, those are 2 guys coming in, again, high ceiling guys, high-level recruits come out of high school. Let's see if both or one can hopefully develop into a very productive linebacker. And then you have Bo Stanley and Rodney Newsome, the two other offensive linemen coming in from Western Kentucky and Troy. A lot of people love how well Stanley played center, but you have versatility with Stanley, Newsome, and also Sharp.
Yep.
So that with some of the returnees and the youngins, the hope is you carve out a pretty good offensive line with the crew. So that's where it's at with the transfer portal for South Carolina as this portal pretty much closes up for right now. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. All right, the men will play Vandy tomorrow night. Again, you can hear it right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate in Myrtle Beach, 100.3 The Game. 5:30 pre, 6 o'clock tip, a little earlier than usual. South Carolina coming off a really good showing against what is now top-ranked Auburn. How much hope did that give you, or are you still going, we got to see this for a few more games? I'm hoping this is not a one-off.
It gave me a lot of hope because, again, you didn't look like you belonged on the court with Mississippi State and Alabama, and they ran through you pretty easily. That, again, is now the number 1 team in the country in Auburn that you took to the limit. And, again, if you're making free throws at the end of that game, you might actually win that game. And, yeah, they were without their best player for the back, 13, 14 minutes at the end of the game, but you held them in check for the most part in the first 30-odd minutes of that game. So I have a lot of optimism going forward. Now, again, if you go out there and tank against Vanderbilt, because so what Jack and I were talking about this the other day on Monday, looking ahead with the games that South Carolina has, because, again, there's no easy stretch in the SEC. You got Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, both those games on the road, before you take on Florida, Mississippi State, again, a ranked Georgia team, and Texas A&M at the beginning of February. I mean, realistically, to get yourself in an ideal situation to try and have a shot at 500 in the league, you're probably having to win in between 3 to 4 of those games at minimum, and that is a tall task. So if you're dropping Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, you're making your task next to impossible to run through those next 4 teams and find wins there.
Look, Vandy is on a 2-game losing streak, but they lost to Mississippi State and they lost to Missouri. Vanderbilt, much better this year. They hit the portal. They've improved themselves. 44th in offensive efficiency. Defense is still optional. 77th in defensive efficiency. They play fast. They're top 50 in tempos. They want to push it. Jason Edwards, their leading scorer. Again, I think North Texas through the portal.
Yep.
So this is not the Vanderbilt we've seen the last couple of years under Jerry Stackhouse. You got a new head coach, kind of new philosophies and style of play. And up until the 2-game losing streak, Vandy was 13-1.
Yep.
So this is not, hey, okay, get well on Vanderbilt. You might, but this isn't an automatic, hey, that's all right, Vandy. We got Vandy next now.
And similarly to the Alabama game, when you have a team that plays at the tempo that they do, it can get out of your hands real fast. Because if you let them get away from you, they're going to be zigzagging up the court. And South Carolina, again, is not built to play that type of basketball. So you got to keep it contained. And you did a really good job of taking, and they weren't the fastest team in the world, but one of the more up-tempo teams compared to what Carolina does, and you made them play your game on Saturday. You held them to 66 points. That is saying something, whether they have their best player or not. And you hope that you take that little nugget from what happened on Saturday and can use it going forward as your kind of jumping off point. And to me, it was so critical because, again, if you start off 0-3 in conference play, there's a discouragement that sets in with the guys on your team. And whether they'll admit it or not, we've all been on bad teams at some point in our life, playing rec league baseball or basketball or football or whatever. And, you get halfway to the season and haven't won a game, and you look around and you're like, man, we really suck. You know what I mean? And that kind of resonates in your mind when you're playing. It's like, I'm probably going to lose today too. Here comes another loss. Oh, other team hit a home run on us. Like it sets in, and you don't want that to happen. So having the game that Carolina had against Auburn hopefully holds that off for a little bit. And you can go out there and get some wins this week against Vanderbilt and Oklahoma and get yourself to 2-3, which again, still an uphill climb, but it's better than being 0-5.
Well, and you don't want this to sink in either. Oh no, here we go again.
Yes.
That's the worst thing that can happen to a person or a team. Oh no, here we go again.
By the way, you also have the fan base that's now got its interest peaked because and there was a lot of Auburn fans there on Saturday. We're not going to debate the number because that upsets some people, but there was a large amount of Auburn fans on Saturday, and I get why Carolina fans may wanted to have shown up because you didn't show them anything in the first 2 games. But that little bit of, hey, they showed promise against the best team in the country. Maybe there is something here. But if you go out there and get waxed by Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, those same people are going to be like, well, so much for that.
Now, baseball season's coming.
Yep, only
Here
a
we
month
go.
away.
And Auburn, real quick, again, they play fast, good offensive team. Defense, it's a work in progress. And like Alabama, Vanderbilt kills it from 2-point range. Inside the arc, they hit 58% of their shots. That is top 25 in the country. So they're not a three-point shooting team. They're a little bit below average, but they're excellent scoring inside the arc. And when you talk about how many shots they take about 41% of their shots from three, which is a little bit above average, but they don't make, but they're below average in making them. So
we saw this Carolina team straight from the jump against Alabama be very aggressive out of the gate and do exactly what we thought they needed to do by pushing Alabama out, not letting them in the paint, and forcing them to shoot threes. Same game plan tomorrow.
We'll see how that goes. So that is tomorrow, 5:30 pregame, 6 o'clock tip. South Carolina taking on Vanderbilt. The women next up will be Thursday night against Alabama. What the women did to Texas was just, and the interesting part of that is you still turn the ball over 20 times, and you beat them like a drum.
Yes.
If you don't turn it over 20 times, you might have stopped that game somewhere in the third quarter because it's like a fight.
By the way, to use the transitive property, Texas beat Alabama 84-40 a couple weeks ago.
There you go.
So
you'll see what's coming. It should be hopefully an easy run for South Carolina against Alabama, but beat them early and beat them often.
yes,
And get this thing over with.
don't make it interesting. Get off the bus early, lay it into them, and then cruise the rest of the way.
And we saw a game where a lot of people contributed, whether it was the starters, people coming off the bench. They contributed offensively, defensively, shot it really well, passed it really well. Besides the turnovers, it was a phenomenal performance.
And obviously, Ashlyn Watkins is a huge loss for this team, but in a weird way, and we kind of talk about this with the men too, where you're down Studi and Jamari Thomas, and they played their best game on Saturday. Sometimes you find ways to play better even when your best players are not out there because it's other people stepping up and filling their roles in individual ways, not just one person taking it over. So again, Carolina loses his best player, goes out there and has his best game in the entire season. You hope that continues through the rest of the year.
All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We'll get back in here. Paul Feinbaum was on our sister station, WJOX in Birmingham. His thoughts on Notre Dame and how things ended for the SEC in the college football playoff. That's coming up next. Halftime show. Tyler Head, David Ayer, Terry Ford, till 3 on the game. All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Tristan's Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Tristan's here on the Halftime Show. David Aaron, Terry Ford, Tyler Head here hanging out with you. Paul Feinbaum on our sister station, WJOX in Birmingham, where Paul got everything really rolling back in the day on Jocks in Birmingham. First of all, Paul talked about, and let's start with cut 2, Dave, how things ended for the SEC this year regarding the college football playoff. Here's Paul, not real happy the way things went for the Southeastern Conference.
I don't know how anybody can make that statement. The one thing I think you can accurately say is what we've just witnessed. And I cringe every time I see a pundit say, well, the SEC is not dead, and let me give you the overall numbers for the year. I don't care about what happened in September and October. What I care about right now is the way the SEC has finished the season, and it has finished the season badly. I think we have to be honest and admit it. Ohio State beat 2 SEC schools. I mean, let's just let's use what we've seen with our own eyes to tell the story. Notre Dame beat Georgia, which was a lot of people's picks, including mine, at the beginning of the season with Ohio State to get to Atlanta. And I think you just have to sometimes when it doesn't go your way. This sounds like I'm teaching a high school class here. Just accept it and move on. And I think the next week will be a very long one for the SEC. It could have been worse if Penn State had pulled that out. It would have the pain would have metastasized. But right now, accept it. The SEC is at home for the first time in nearly 20 years on a back-to-back national championship basis. That doesn't mean that we aren't any good, and I think we get hung up on that. I think everybody listening to us this morning in Alabama and around the country know how good the SEC is, but what you do in the playoffs defines you. Just ask Josh Allen if he were to lose next weekend. Just ask anybody who has never won the title, and that's what we're going through right now. And quit tilting at windmills and just accept the fact that the ending was bad for the SEC.
No, I mean, I get where Paul's going. I agree. It's like, look, it didn't end well, but it's not like the league stinks. It's not like everybody caught up with the SEC. It's just you had a year where it didn't end well.
Sure.
Last year, you had Alabama losing in overtime to Michigan in a game they should have won. So you go, yeah, you know what? You were that close. And then really, to me, Georgia was the best team in college football in 2023. And just the way that whole thing played itself out. This past year, though, it's different. This was not as good a version of Georgia as we've seen in the last 4 years. Alabama, no Nick Saban. No other school in the SEC, and look, I guess we want to add Texas. Okay, Texas got to the college football playoff semifinal, but no traditional school in the SEC that were stepped up to fill that void.
Sure.
Right? And that really was the problem. If you look at the level 2 of the SEC, with South Carolina and Alabama and Ole Miss, they were good football teams. I mean, obviously, we saw what Texas did. Georgia, even though they weren't Georgia, still won the SEC.
Yeah.
I just feel like the SEC did not have those typical behemoths that we're used to. They just had a bunch of really good teams.
In college football, or any college sports in general, you're judged primarily by the top of your conference, by those 2 to 3 teams that just kind of control everything. And look, when we talk about the dominance of the SEC over the past 20 years, guess what? A majority of that was one team, Alabama, winning national championships, winning SEC titles. And yes, you had the Georgias and the LSUs and, Auburn randomly in there, mixed too. But for the most part, Alabama was doing the heavy lifting on that. Alabama this year took a significant step back. I think when you look at the strength of the conference from 1 to 16, from the best team to the worst, I'd still put it up against any other conference head to toe comparably. But again, we look at what happens at the top, and you're looking at the Big Ten, which has Ohio State likely to win a national championship here in a couple of days. Obviously, Notre Dame's an independent, so that's a little bit of a different story. But Penn State was right there, playing in the semifinals for a chance to potentially make it an all-Big Ten national championship. Had they won that game, and they end up losing on a last-second field goal. So the optics of this year tell you that the SEC is down. And again, you can't deny, like Paul mentioned there, that it's been 2 years since they've been in the championship game. First time that's happened in 20 years. And there's so many people are ready to stick the fork in, right? Because it's been dominant for so long. And again, a lot of that was Alabama, but you had plenty of other teams that have been at or near the top. They're ready to say it's dead, but it's not quite the case yet. Because again, Georgia can retool in the transfer portal in the offseason, which they're already doing with wide receivers and stuff like that. And they may be stronger than ever next year. And again, I will take on a year in, year out basis the top to bottom of the SEC, 1 to 16, compared to any other conference. That doesn't mean they're going to win the title every single year or even play for the title every single year. But I still think the SEC is plenty strong. They just didn't have the best year this year.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby's Kirby, Georgia's Georgia, and I think they'll be fine. We'll see what Alabama is under Kalen DeBoer. Brian Kelly. Brian had a rough year. Not only did LSU underachieve, but the school he left is playing for the national championship. But Brian Kelly's a good coach, and LSU has a ton of resources, money, all that stuff. What is going to happen, with other programs that have been successful in the past, like Auburn under Hugh Freeze? What will happen there? Again, South Carolina, you feel like you're trending forward under Shane. Ole Miss has averaged 10 wins a year in the last, 3 years under Kiffin.
Yep.
Who's going to fill the void? If Georgia, I think Georgia will be fine, but Alabama moves out of the way. Can a couple of teams step up to be perennially, not Alabama level, because we're not going to see that again in our lifetime, but who can step up to be, if not on a year in, year out basis, cyclically, I like that big dog that can compete for a championship? That's really where you're at.
Yeah, and look, the middle ground, the SEC has been a mixed bag over the years of different teams going in, different teams going out, teams ascending from the bottom to the middle and from the middle to the bottom and all that kind of stuff. And look, Carolina fixates itself right now in the middle ground of the SEC. You wouldn't say they're an elite A-tier program, but guess what? They took what we perceived to be an elite top-tier program in Alabama to the very limit of that game. They took what at the time was a highly ranked LSU team all the way to the end of that game. Did get squashed by Ole Miss, but that is something that you certainly can't hang too much on that one. But for the most part, they held their own against everybody that they played this year, and were just there on the cusp of maybe making the playoffs themselves.
Is Texas that team? I mean, they've been in the last 2 college football playoffs. Sark seems like he's got that thing locked in. Are they going to be that team that perennially competes for a championship? Obviously, something's still missing. They are talented like nobody's business. Is it as simple as this, that Quinn Ewers will not be the starting quarterback next year? I mean, does Arch Manning reach that whole potential we think Arch Manning has? And is the difference just better play at quarterback? Going from a guy who's good but inconsistent to a guy that's wow, if he is wow. I don't know, but Texas, are they that team, Tyler? I don't know.
So last year, of course, Texas made the semifinal, came up short making the national championship. And our conversation coming away from, we're not ready to declare Texas back yet because it's 1 year. And do it for 2 years in a row, put together a couple seasons, then we'll be ready to say that's a different story. And by making the semifinal again this year, didn't win the SEC, obviously, but made it to Atlanta in your first year in the SEC, I can confidently say that I think Texas is perennially going to be one of those teams that in the SEC you're going to have to go through. And out of all of college football, you could very well see in the playoff on a consistent basis as a legitimate shot for the national championship. Now, like you said, there's still pieces missing there. There's still something that's not allowing them to get over the hump. Maybe it is quarterback. Maybe Arch Manning will change that in his likely 1 year there at Texas. But again, they're in a good place. They just need a little bit more to get over that hump.
All right, here's Paul Feinbaum also on Jocks in Birmingham talking about Notre Dame being the comeback story of the year in college football. Cut one, Dave.
Well, certainly there's a slight paradigm shift in college football, and I think it's because of all the things that we talk about, the portal and how easy it is for schools to go out and get players on a moment's notice. But I don't think you can ever read too much into a snapshot. I understand the narrative, but I think the fact that we have a Big Ten team in there again is certainly very positive for them. And I just think Notre Dame managing to come all the way back is one of the most remarkable stories that I have seen in college football, because on the second weekend of the year when they lost to NIU, I think you had to think this team had no chance of making it to the playoffs and certainly the final game.
Yeah, I mean, we wrote off Notre Dame. Look, you lost to Northern Illinois, seriously?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nobody had lost to a non-power school and still made the national championship, let alone made the playoff. And yet they did.
And again, in a 4-team field, neither Notre Dame or Ohio State's going to be in. So you expand the field, and teams have crawled their way back from losses to end up playing for the championship. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. I believe it's the 14th of January, Tom.
That's correct.
What is that?
Greatest day in the history of the world.
That is next here on the Halftime Show. David Ayer, Tyler Head, Terry Ford, here till 3 on the game. You know, we talk about the Nest in the Vista all the time. If you want to get, maybe redo your kitchen with new appliances, refrigerator, stove, garbage disposal, dishwasher, whatever. We discuss it all the time. We talk about maybe you want to do new lightings, new fixtures, new stuff with the bathroom, new plumbing. And, I talk about it because, I'm on the radio. That's what we do. But, the people I've talked to who have used the Nest just talk about how professional they are, how knowledgeable they are, 70 years of experience at the Nest, how they, sit down with you and don't try to sell you on the phone, but bring you in, walk you around the showroom, show you all your options, actually listen to what you have to say because it's your home, your vision, your wants, your budget, your pricing. And then they put things together to help you reach those goals. So, look, call 803-978-2025 and set up an appointment to go in and just make everything come true for you at the Nest. The greatest day in the history of the world is January 14th here on the Halftime Show. We like to go old school in the beginning of our little get-together on the day in history. On this day, 1943, Tyler had Alex Smart of the Montreal Canadiens, a hat trick in his first NHL game as Montreal beat the Chicago Blackhawks 5-1.
Is that Kirby's great uncle?
Now I was getting ready to say, part of the great Smart family.
I don't think there's a relation.
You don't think? Now Kirby Smart, listen to me. Alex Smart played 12 years in the NHL. No, take it back. I take that back. Ready? He played 8 games in the NHL for the Montreal Canadiens during the 42-43 season. Rest of his career, he spent in the Quebec Senior Hockey League. This guy scored 3 goals in his first game. That was only one of 8 games he played in his entire NHL career.
Wow.
Think about that. That is quite, according to Wikipedia that we're looking at right now.
That's impressive.
That's wild. So, very interesting tidbit there. Now, again, could Wikipedia be wrong? Sure. We've had that happen a couple times, but according to Wikipedia...
Wikipedia is never wrong.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that real quick? What I think is interesting about Wikipedia, maybe I shouldn't say this on the air, but you can go edit
Oh, yeah.
anybody's stuff.
Have you ever accidentally clicked on the editing feature?
Yes.
Like, it's not anybody. You have to go through like a process and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, for the most part, if you go through the steps, you can edit Wikipedia. Now, there are fact checkers where people that, because, what's funny is, I don't know if, let's say last night, Matt Stafford threw for 800 yards. Somebody would have went in there and edited, Matt Stafford is the Vikings' father or something along those lines. That gets cleaned up pretty quickly.
I was going to say, you get it in there for a second.
You screenshot it.
And it's
then
gone.
It gets changed.
Yes.
So there are people that come in and clean it up. So most of the things on there are true. But look, we were all in college, and they said, don't you dare ever cite Wikipedia.
I know.
Even go back to high school. Now, did we all use Wikipedia to at least get us on track? Absolutely.
Oh, no doubt. All right, so that's our...
You just had to find something that said the exact same thing as Wikipedia from a reputable source.
You need a second fact check.
Exactly.
Usually. All right, also 1968, the Green Bay Packers win their second straight Super Bowl as they beat the Oakland Raiders. Bart Starr was the game's MVP. Here's some numbers. Starr only completed 13 of 24 for 202 yards. Packers beat the Raiders easy. I think that's the game. And again, my history off the top of my head isn't as good as it used to be. The wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, Max McGee. Max McGee was known as a guy that liked to stay out late and have a good time. And I think this is the Super Bowl where Max McGee, the old wives' tale was Max was hungover, didn't know he was going to play.
Yep.
All of a sudden, Max, you got to get there and take some snaps today. And McGee caught 2 touchdown passes.
I'm sure Vince Lombardi loved having him as a player.
I just would love that in today's world. Justin Jefferson with hangover catches 9 balls for 172 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Listen, we watched Johnny Manziel do it in college. Now, doing it in the pros is obviously a different story. What? Brett Favre off a hangover after throwing up violently, tossed 5 touchdown passes at Southern Miss or something?
Brett Favre, man. I worked in Wisconsin for a couple of years. There's some good Brett Favre stories that we can't repeat here. That was the first $3 million gate in pro football history, that Super Bowl. And it's the other interesting part about those early Super Bowls, like Super Bowl I was in, I believe, the LA Coliseum.
Yep.
You could just walk up, get a ticket.
Insane. And you know what? There were actual football fans in the building for those games. It wasn't a corporate event like it's become today.
Wasn't a sellout. People, you walk up. It was called the AFL NFL Championship game. It wasn't even called Super Bowl yet. You just walk up. You could have said, "Wow, there's a lot of people over there at the LA Coliseum. Wonder what they're doing." You walk up to the ticket person. "Hey, Edgar, what's happening in there?" "Oh, AFL NFL Championship game. Pop me a ticket."
Yeah, and
you could have done that.
Ticket was $1.
I know. It's if you think about what that behemoth is today.
Oh yeah.
To where it started in the late 60s.
Everything has humble beginnings, and it's also funny to look back, like Kendrick Lamar is doing the halftime show this year. We've had Rihanna, we've had all these, huge worldwide known acts. It wasn't all that long ago. It was like the marching band for whatever, like they'd be, when they played at the Sugar Bowl, Tulane's marching band was the halftime show. You know what I mean? Like, it used to be nothing.
I know one of the early days, there was a singing group called Up With People that did the halftime show.
I've heard about this.
Yeah, or it's like, Billy's Banjo Group or whatever. It's insane what the halftime show was in the early days of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, now it's literally a multi-gazillion-dollar production, and they got moving stages and they got human sculptures and all this kind of stuff.
People can make or break their career during the halftime show.
No, like listen, the Super Bowl is the best entertainment extravaganza because it's the one thing that can get people that love sports and the people that don't love sports to watch one thing at the same time, because there's a ton of people, wives, girlfriends, whatever, that, hey, I only want to watch the halftime show and the commercials. And for everybody else, well, it's going to be, I'm going to watch the game. You have something for everyone.
Everyone. Absolutely. It's always funny when you're watching the game how everybody's like, shuts up during the commercials, which is so not the rest of the year.
I can't do Super Bowl parties. I can't. Because as somebody that wants to watch the game, I'm not interested in casual conversations happening during the game.
And you can't be at a Super Bowl get-together without casual conversation.
No, and you can't be like, shut up, third down.
I got to talk about this tomorrow.
Exactly.
You mind?
No, I can't do Super Bowl parties. I can't.
I've been at the last one we did was when the Eagles beat the Patriots, because again, girlfriend's from Philly. I got family from Philly on her side. Had some people from, my friends and some people, and we had a house full of folks. That's the last time we did it. Again, I love people, but it was like, okay, note to self, not doing that again.
Yeah.
No, not doing that again. I love them all.
Sure.
Not doing it again.
On the other 364 days.
Exactly. 1973, on this day, the Miami Dolphins, the 14-0 regular season Miami Dolphins, beat the Washington Redskins in the Super Bowl 14-7 to become the only undefeated team in NFL history, or Super Bowl era.
For the 50-plus years since, everybody's been chasing it. Nobody's achieved it.
Closest one was the Patriots.
That's right.
They had it.
There is actually an old song on YouTube. You can probably find it, of somebody that made a 18-0 Patriots theme song. And in the song, it goes, one more to go, talking about the Giants, Super Bowl, and obviously that didn't happen.
Oops.
Came close.
Also on this day in 1990, Joe Montana set an NFL record, tossing his 30th and 31st postseason touchdown passes. 49ers beat the Rams in the NFC Championship game. On this day, John Elway threw for 385 yards. Denver beat Cleveland, went to the Super Bowl to face San Francisco, and the 49ers kicked the living everything out of Denver in that Super Bowl. Montana was throwing opposite-handed by the third quarter. It was a skull kicking.
Elway's chase to finally get a Lombardi was a long one.
Yes, and it's ironic, in the game he did get a Lombardi. He didn't play that well. Terrell Davis doesn't come back from his migraines. Green Bay probably beats Denver in that Super Bowl.
Yep.
But the Broncos finally got over them the next year when they beat, who they beat?
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know? Elway played well.
Yeah, it helps when one of your star players was in jail the night before.
Yeah, the guy who won NFL Man of the Year for his work in the community and that great family man.
Yeah.
Who was he?
Eugene Robinson. My dad always jokes he should have made him, because that game was in Miami, right? Should have made him drive back to Atlanta with his wife. That should have been his punishment.
Wouldn't have been an uncomfortable drive at all. And put the child locks on the doors?
Exactly. And no radio, no nothing.
Nothing.
We're going to talk about it for 9 hours.
This day in 2001, the New York Giants slapped the taste out of the Minnesota Vikings' mouth in the NFC Championship game, which was a surprise. 41-0. The Giants won that game for the right to go get stepped on by the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl.
Yep. Yeah, that was marching to your death at that point.
That was not good. Not good. It was. I remember watching the beginning of that. I think it was Super Bowl 35. The first series the Giants had the ball, said they're not going to score.
Why, Trent Dilfer, Kerry Collins, worst quarterback matchup of all time?
Absolutely, yes. And look, Trent Dilfer, love Trent Dilfer. I do. Nice guy. might be the worst starting quarterback on a winning Super Bowl team ever.
He has the weakest flex of any Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Well, again, the Ravens saw so much of him, they replaced him the next year with Elvis Grbac.
Yeah, that's usually not a great sign.
Tells you a little something right there. Let's see. Your greatest day in the history of the world here on the halftime show. See, we got another one. Now we're running out of time. That's good. We're good. That's it. All right. Firehouse Sub text the hour next, 803-404-6100. Also, we'll do our little handoff with Jay Phillips in the postgame show, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. That is coming up next here on the halftime show. Tyler Head, David Ayer, Terry Ford hanging in here with you for a little while longer on the game. Firehouse subtext to the hour at 803-404-6100. Also, we'll do our handoff with our buddy Jay Phillips, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. David Air, Tyler Head, Terry Ford. It's a halftime show here on the game.
You just throw the word buddy around.
You know what? I'm trying to be nice. You know,
Well,
I'm trying to be.
Or am I trying to be nice? It's a two-way street, my man. How's it going?
Buddy.
Yeah.
What are you doing, buddy?
Pal, sport,
Sport. My favorite one's sport. We had a guy in Boise, we call everybody Sport and Champ.
tiger, champ.
Champ.
Yep.
Hey, Commander, Commodore. I always love those. They're good. And you find out later, the people called you because I couldn't remember your name.
I may have been guilty of that with some, like the kids, like in some, when your kids are growing up, I can't necessarily remember.
So you can't remember your kids' names?
Oh, I don't. I know I don't do that.
Why'd you gotta be like George Foreman?
But like when when the kids were younger, and you're like at school for some, function, right?
Right. Oh, I know.
And it's like, hey, buddy, because
you
like,
got
hey, Mr.
to.
Phillips, and I'm like, hey, buddy, I'm like, and I go to my wife, and she's like,
Who's that?
and she knows.
See, I've always been.
I'm better about it now, but when they were younger, I'm like, because I don't have boys, so the boys who knew my daughters in their classes, and
Like in this, like doing this, you meet so many people, and and as I've been doing this, I can't remember everybody's name.
right.
And you meet someone and everybody, and look, most people are very nice, and they'll come and talk to you, and they'll tell you their name.
Right.
And they've told you their name, and then you go, oh my God, I can't remember their name.
Well, I have trouble with Tripp's name all the time.
You mean
Exactly.
Timmy?
Tommy.
You mean Timmy Hurt?
Yeah.
Timmy Hurt on the Timmy Hurt.
My pro tip, if I can't remember somebody's name, is I say, oh, hey, I didn't get your number. Why don't you put it in my phone?
Oh, that's a good
Something
one.
along those lines. Or I also refer to people as man a lot. That usually kind of covers it.
Yeah, I'm like, man, dude.
I'm not gonna lie. Now we're all very, very well attached to our significant other, but I got to say, Tyler, that's not a bad ploy if you're down in 5 points there, college
Hey,
guys.
can you put your?
I didn't get your number.
That's pretty good by you.
Solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? If I wasn't retired,
listen,
I might steal that one, Jay.
I've-
That's good.
That's a tip.
I've been around the block.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what I love though? The people, and you can tell the people took those because there's these classes people take and all this other stuff about professionalism, sales, marketing. When they do this, they meet you. So Jay, tell me about this. Hey Jay, hey Jay, because they just say your name over and over again to keep it in their head. I'm like, oh, you took that Dale Carnegie, didn't you? You took that class.
And they don't blink when they're staring at you.
No, they don't. They go, hi Jay. So Jay, well Jay, tell me about the. And you're like, okay, I get what you're doing.
Yep.
I understand. I get
Ready
it.
to walk away at that point.
Oh yeah, it's just what do you got there on the old Firehouse sub text line?
So Greg from Sumter says he apparently taught Brandon Cisse in elementary school. Said, great kid, very athletic and competitive.
What was his Pro Football Focus grade in elementary school?
Yeah, how did he do on the playground in football?
Yeah, how was he on?
Was he like head and shoulders better than everybody else? Let us know.
Probably.
Oh, yeah, he probably stood out.
Probably.
Wouldn't doubt. A lot of times you see that, just like, okay, that kid's got something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They did okay in the portal. I don't know how these portal ratings work relative to recruiting ratings. I guess there's some science to it that has.
There's an algorithm.
Yeah, a level of.
They're top 20. I mean, they're top 20 in their portal ranking.
The thing is, like West did a piece on retention, and I'm thinking maybe we need a third set of grades these days. You know, your high school recruiting grade, your portal recruiting grade, and then your retention grade, and retention based on those who were eligible to leave but did not. Not so much that you lost somebody to the draft.
Well, you know,
Or just
what does Wes always call them? Healthy transfers?
Healthy transfers, guys that didn't really contribute, guys that, you kind of expect, okay, he's seeking more opportunity elsewhere to play.
I mean, we've seen up until this offseason so far, knock on stuff, South Carolina's lost a guy or a couple that they really wanted to keep, right? The only one last year was really Juice Wells, and that relationship, I think, kind of fractured as the season went along, to be fair.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
And maybe they didn't want to keep
I
him.
would say by the time it was all said and done, they were
Probably done.
I think it was one of those, what is it, don't let the door hit you?
Well, and I don't think he got out of it what he was hoping to get out of it.
And they didn't either in his last year. So, yeah you had a two-way street there. This year,
One
you've
really
helped.
nice touchdown in Athens, and apparently
That's all you got.
changed everything.
You know, This year, though, you held on to your guys. To their credit,
Yeah.
they held on to everybody they wanted to hold on to.
Yeah.
So and retention, you hit it on the head, though, Jay, buddy.
Sport.
The retention is so important. How many times you see these teams, they bring in a bunch of guys to the portal, a bunch of guys leave.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, okay, let me sit down and really, like Texas Tech. They're bringing they're number one in the portal rankings on On3 because they're spending tons of money now.
Yeah, because that dude that they have.
The dude with the dough. Yes, that guy. So, all right, but you're losing a lot of guys too. So how many of them are you losing that you really like to keep? Or you're off on the shiny thing spending your money and you're not thinking about how valuable the retention is? I don't know.
I don't know.
I really don't know. What we got coming up there, buddy?
Sport. John Whittle's going to join us. Looking forward to talking to John.
Nice.
And the AFCA meetings are going on in Charlotte. They've got y'all talk about any of that?
Yeah, the injury and the transfer portal
get into
stuff.
a little bit of that. I have questions on both. I do. I get where they're coming from, but I have questions on both.
Uh-huh.
And is Dion going to go to Dow?
Nah, but it's fun to talk about.
I hope so.
But it would be fun if he did.
Hope so.
Post-game show is next with Jay and Elijah. Good job, Tyler. Nice work, Dave. We'll do it again tomorrow.